Hello everyone. In our, this year, the series that we are working on, which is our lifestyle, diet is a part of it. And we have been working on the spiritual side, meditation side, and this year we are focusing on the diet and our lifestyle part, which immensely impact, when we say our happy and healthy life. So today it's our pleasure to welcome Karthikka Ji, and she will be taking today's session. And sorry, just briefly to introduce Karthikka Ji, she's a seeker and a wellness enthusiast at heart. You know, she's one of those who wear multiple hats in terms of, IT delivery, leader by profession, health coach by passion, and a volunteer language teacher. So you can imagine multitasking, which reflects you know, uh, the inner, you can say the energy when we reflect in terms of our health and well-being. And so this is our pleasure to hear from her. So Karthika ji, please take it from here. Namaskar, and thanks for taking today's session.
Namaskar, Kauravji. Namaskar, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm really grateful to be here, to be talking to you all today. Just before we continue, wanted to make sure you all can hear me.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So today I want to talk about conscious eating for healthy living. And I had a slide in here just to have a little bit brief about me and why I'm here to talk to you about this topic. I'm a IT delivery leader by profession. I've been having a long 20-year career through which I've had my own health challenges and struggles trying to balance everything. And that led me on to a learning about holistic living and meditation and healthy eating. And I did my own self research and I implemented lifestyle changes, which made a tremendous difference in how I was leading my life. And I wanted to be able to share it with everybody. So I studied in the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and became a health coach so I could share the knowledge with others who are on a similar journey like I am. That's the little bit of a brief about me. So, before we go into the session, I want to emphasize one thing. We all know what to do. Right? We're living in the information age. There is plenty of information available for us all around. Knowledge is not an issue. But when it comes to implementing what we know and converting into doing it and making it part of an active lifestyle and maintaining it, that's where the challenges and the gaps come into picture. So a lot of times when we think about, okay, I know what to do, but I'm not able to do, there are some gaps that come into our minds. So the typical gaps that come into are the overt ones. I don't have the time to eat healthy, or healthy things are not easily available to me conveniently, or I lack willpower and I'm not good at sticking to a diet or following something a very strict regimen. Those are some of the things that comes to our mind at the very beginning, and so we tend to not look deeper and kind of try to address those time or convenience or willpower related challenges, if you may. But what I have observed in my journey is there is certain things that are more subtle to it, which is not very apparent. And once we start taking a deeper look at things, a few other subtle challenges emerge. And that's what we will be covering in today's topic. So what are these subtle challenges that comes when trying to implement a healthy diet, a healthy eating lifestyle? We all start without having a deeper understanding of having an awareness and understanding the mindset, our mindset when it comes to eating, and the emotional connection, the mind body connection to how it impacts diet and our lifestyle. So those are the things that I want to cover today in this topic. So, how can we improve our awareness towards eating? We all know on a high level that I eat healthy or I'm a very good eater, I eat clean. But we don't necessarily take a deeper look at understanding our eating patterns and kind of have a detailed understanding of why we do certain things and when. So it always helps for us to dig deeper and try to get a log, like a food diary. It could be anything. It could be a digital log, or it could be an Excel sheet. It could be a app on your phone, or even a diary, just a paper diary at home, where we can try to document what we're eating, how we're eating, when we're eating, and why we're eating. Because most of the times our focus lies on what we eat as opposed to how and when and why. And the struggles come in terms of trying to change our lifestyle and change our eating patterns. They don't rely, they are a little bit more difficult on the how, when, and why part than the what part. Because, like I said earlier, we all know what to eat, what is healthy, eating more vegetables, consuming more liquids and fruits, all those things. It's pretty much well known facts to all of us. So the what is not as much of a question as to the how and when and why. So trying to take a deeper look at how we eat. Are we sitting down and having enough time to eat on a daily basis? Or when do we eat? Do we always eat at the same time? And most important question that we need to ask ourselves is why we eat certain things. Like, that will help us understand the bigger connection around the emotional connection with food, the mind body connection, and why we do eat the way we eat, which will help us break those patterns and try to reorient and come up with a healthy lifestyle that is more suited for ourselves. So that is one thing that I'd like to focus on, is not just the what to eat part, but also the how, the when, and the why. So most of us who try to stick to a diet or to have healthy eating, we come across things that we know that may not be good for us, but sometimes we do eat it anyway. And that is because there is a very strong connection between our emotions and what we eat. So depending on what we feel, our body kind of gives us the cues to rely on certain foods. So that is the connection between the craving and the emotion. We might know that there is a craving, but we may not necessarily understand why there is that craving. Sometimes we might crave coffee, we might crave sugar, we might crave, fried things. And so instead of just dealing with it as a willpower issue, which most of us tend to understand that, oh, I just don't have the willpower to stick to something, like I get this urge suddenly and I just have to have it. What will help us understand is to peel the layers on that craving and try to go a little bit more deeper and understand, like, why do we have that craving. And if we notice, there is always a connection between our emotion and the craving. For example, research shows that whenever we are stressed out, we trend to go for sugary, salty comfort foods. And when we are sad, we tend to go for high carb, high fat, highly indulgent food. And when we're happy, or when we are bored, we want to get a break, we like to eat snacks, something that as a child would have given us happiness. So there is that learned pattern in ourselves that if you eat this, you become happy. So the brain draws a connection between that particular food and that emotion. And oftentimes, what we're trying to do is in order to get that emotion, we're using that food to feel happy, to get out of stress mode, or to not feel sad, or to simply, avoid and to get a temporary relief from whatever that emotion that we are feeling. And what happens in this case is it kind of leads us into a vicious cycle, as you can see. First, we feel an urge to eat, then we start eating, and we don't stop. We eat more than what we eat. And then that leads into guilt. And then we feel like, oh my God, I shouldn't have had this much. Why did I have this many, chocolates? Or why did I have more than that piece of cake? Or I had too many samosas, whatever that guilt, that feeling is, the guilt and the regret, that feeds into negative emotions, which triggers the urge to eat. So it kind of creates this vicious cycle of, when we don't understand that connection, we become trapped and not able to get out of that cycle and break it and see what it is that we can do to control what we eat, as well as try to understand the reasoning and the urge, the reason behind the urge, so we can address it at the root cause, address the urge as opposed to controlling downstream of what we are eating. So having an understanding of that emotional connection helps, and that is where what I mentioned in the previous slide is trying to keep a detailed diary of what we eat, why we eat. And in my case, what I noticed most of the times is the late afternoon. I was eating pretty healthy in the mornings, in the nights, but towards the end of my day, there was an energy dip. And at that point of time, I just wanted to eat and I wanted to fuel my body. So I was eating things that I would otherwise not choose to eat during the rest of the times when I had more time to sit down and have a conscious meal. So that kind of helps all of us to understand our patterns when we keep an diary and note down things of what I'm eating, but also not what I'm eating, when I'm eating, and why I'm eating this. What am I getting from eating this? I feel happy, or I just want to feel energetic, and I want to avoid having to go through this stress right now. So, and that's what ice cream is for most people, right? It's a comfort food, um, which helps you get over that feeling. So once we have that kind of a detailed log of what we eat, when, and why, it helps us get more into the root to be able to identify the patterns and deal with things at the root level, especially the emotional connection. The next thing that becomes a subtle but really big challenge for a lot of us who are trying to implement healthy eating is, what is our mindset with respect to eating? There are various different mindsets that are not really helpful for somebody who's trying to maintain a consistent healthy eating lifestyle. Some of them are what I have mentioned here. We tend to look at things from a more all or nothing kind of a mindset, where if we say, okay, pizza is not healthy, so I shouldn't be eating pizza. But there are circumstances in which you may not have any other choice of food, and that may be the only choice that is available to you. Or, in my case, it's my kids really love it. So for us to have a family meal and to be able to enjoy it as a meal, if I'm very particular about avoiding a certain thing, and if I adopt a perfectionist mindset, that causes more harm than good. And the other type of mindset that comes into picture with respect to our approach to healthy eating is a scarcity mindset. And this when this particular topic was very surprising to me, because I thought, like, I don't really have a scarcity mindset at all. And so why, is this popping up? And then once I started taking a deeper look at things, there are times when I do go through the scarcity mindset. And one of a very good example that I can give is when I'm traveling. When we're going into remote places, you're hiking, or you're like not at your home where you have complete control over what you eat and how and when you eat. When that is not present, I did have the scarcity mindset, and I did not want to feel hungry later. So what I would do is, in the morning, even though I am not hungry, I would still opt to eat something as opposed to not eating it. And so after eating it, what happens? We get this guilty feeling of, oh my God, now, you know, I've been traveling for this many number of days, and all these times I have been eating this, and this is something that I shouldn't have been eating. So there comes that guilt. And research actually shows that when you have guilt over what you eat, your hypothalamus sends signal to your digestive system to slow down digestion. It has a direct effect on your metabolism. So not only are we not putting things into our body that we think are actually bad for us, but at the same time we are affecting the metabolism of it. So the same thing that you eat, if you hadn't had a guilt over it, your body would digest it better. So that is another, thing that was very fascinating to me, is having these mindset changes to not think about having the discomfort over hunger, or to avoid feeling hungry to eat when I'm not really hungry, just to avoid the discomfort, or to avoid later on to not feel hungry, and to have a perfectionist mindset. And another thing is the measurement mindset. A lot of us go by calories. Oh my God, I have eaten so much today, that means I need to work out this many number of hours. So I ate two samosas, I have to run so many minutes on the treadmill. And even that creates those negative emotions in our brain that slows down the digestion, the metabolism mechanism in our body. So these emotions and the mindset that we are having when it comes to approaching our food actually makes a whole lot of difference in terms of how our body digests what we eat, and how that gets absorbed into the bloodstream. So the approach that would be healthy for all of us to go for is to not be focused on a all or nothing, or a measurement based, I have to eat this, I have to have a 1500 calorie meal with the ratio of all of this. Instead of the emphasis on that, if the emphasis shifts to a more practical, pragmatic approach of, I am going towards progress as opposed to perfection, that will help us a lot in terms of sustaining a healthy eating lifestyle. So, like I said earlier, we all have the knowledge of what to do, but the gap is in implementing that and then sustaining that and making it a part of our lifestyle. So we talked about, all the emotional connections to what we eat, and how having an awareness of a complete awareness of what and when and why we eat helps. So, what can we do on a day to day basis to close this gap and be able to eat foods in a healthier way, and make it part of our routine and lifestyle through all the changes that anyone goes through in life? Is I through implementing these things, right? The first thing is to practice mindful eating. No matter how healthy we eat, but if we are not understanding the cues that our body gives and eating for a fixed diet or for a fixed expectation, it is not going to be helpful for us in terms of both metabolism as well as in terms of trying to sustain our eating patterns into a longer term lifestyle change. So the single biggest thing that I have noticed that has helped me the most is eating only when hungry, not eating on time, but eating on hunger cues. Our body is very intelligent. Our gut is the second brain. It knows what it needs at what time, and it gives us the cues. Oftentimes, not just to eat when, but also to eat what. So we talked about some of the hunger, the cravings that in the earlier part that tends to make us eat more of the unhealthy choices, but there are also healthy cravings. There are also healthy cues that our bodies give, right? Thirst is a healthy cue. When there isn't enough water, then the body, gives you the signals. That is the thirst is the signal. And a lot of times you might have noticed, if you are writing things down, you might have a craving for ginger, or you might have a craving for something that helps you to beat what is going on in your body. If the metabolism is not, you know, the way it is supposed to be, then if we closely pay attention to the signals that the body is giving us, we will understand that, oh, I feel like eating ginger because there is something going on in my digestion that I need to focus on. And so paying attention to those cues and differentiating them from cravings helps us a lot in terms of knowing what to eat and when to eat. And the other things is also knowing when to stop eating. A lot of us today eat, you know, in a multitasking way. We eat when we're watching TV, or we eat when we're working. It's a working lunch, or we eat when we are trying to do anything else. And what happens when we have that kind of a multitasking mode is we tend to ignore the fullness signals that the body gives us. So we're more focused on doing multiple things, so we don't know when to stop, and that leads to overeating, and that leads to us, relying on food for comfort and things like that. So not only should we rely on our hunger cues to know when to eat, but also we need to rely on the fullness cues to know when to stop. And the other thing is, when it comes to practicing awareness of mindful eating, is to really slow down and try to focus on chewing the food, which helps a lot in the metabolism of the food getting digested and not getting converted into fat, and ultimately resulting in unhealthy markers. So slowing down when we're eating and focusing on chewing food are some of the simple things that we can implement without making much larger shifts to what we eat, how to cook, how to procure, and how to work on our willpower, and all those overt challenges that I talked about earlier. The next strategy when it comes to closing the knowing to doing gap is to overcome emotional eating. And this is applicable based on what we see in our log for people when they find that, I tend to go towards tea as uh, way for me to take a break, a way for me to energize, or I tend to go towards ice cream for me to beat the overwhelm or stress. And if our log says that, based on looking at what we eat and when, if we find out these connections of what we tend to eat, then what we can substitute that is with some other coping mechanism. So if I'm always eating chips when I'm stressed out, or if I'm always going for a coffee when I'm feeling low energy, what we can do is try to replace that with some other coping mechanism. So if I'm feeling stressed out and I'm eating chips for stress, then what else gives me stress relief? Can I just listen to some soothing music, or can I take a walk, or can I, play with the kids, or whatever it is that is individuals helps as an individual relax. If we use those coping mechanisms, then and not turn to food, that also helps us eat a more healthy way. And lastly, adopting a different mindset when it comes to food and change and lifestyle, emphasizing progress over perfection and recognizing our uniqueness. This is something that I really found very interesting. Is there are a lot of diets, there are 100 plus diets, and each diet has its own positives and negatives. And a lot of times what we tend to do is try to pick some diet because we have heard that that diet worked for so and so, or that diet is the best diet. But we miss the part of whether that diet is actually a good fit for us. So, really recognizing our unique capabilities and making sure that that diet fits our lifestyle, our family, our origin, and eating traditional foods is something that has been in our DNA over a lot of years. And so suddenly trying to flip that and try to eat something that is not in your traditional food is also not healthy. So when it comes to adopting some diet, it's important to recognize our uniqueness, who I am as a bio individual, what fits for me, what fits my lifestyle, fits my values, and taking that into consideration and not following anything to its strictest diet, but adopting it for us and making it unique for us will help us in sustaining that change, as well as making it a part of our lifestyle. And as any change takes time, right? Nothing happens overnight. So for us to be able to make changes to any eating pattern and sustain it over time, a lot of us think that it's a question of willpower. Once I get that like really strong will, I can plow through everything and it's just a matter of strengthening my willpower. What I have noticed is more than willpower, sustaining motivation and being celebrating the small wins and the small changes is what helps to build on. And each small change, recognizing each small change that we do, even if it is one thing that we change for today, recognizing that and celebrating it and feeling happy and content about it really builds our motivation than trying to do all at once and having a perfectionist approach. And so I really want to emphasize lastly that a healthy lifestyle is a journey, it's not a destination. Each one of us is on a journey at different points of time, and no matter where we are right where we need to be, and there is always room to grow and more to do. So I'd encourage everybody to think of healthy eating and lifestyle as a journey and not as a place to reach one day and be done with it. So these are all the things that we can do within ourselves, but we can also get support from others. Sharing our what we eat or what we're trying to do with a friend, with a family member, with a coworker keeps us accountable, keeps us motivated and keeps us going. Talking about it and sharing that knowledge helps us to implement, so we're not in it all by ourselves. And I would encourage also to seek out, if anyone needs support with a nutritionist or with a health coach, to provide that level of guidance and accountability if they need the additional support from what they get from a friends or being part of a group. Thank you all for listening in. I once again want to pay my thanks to Gauravji and for you all for giving me this opportunity to present. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Karthika ji. That was so good. If I just summarize the key points here, as you talked about the awareness, the what part is generally easy. People look at the labels and what they are eating, but the interesting part comes when we go for, how, when, and why. That's the challenge and generally overlooked part. And then each one should look into their own emotional connection because we are all unique. We have unique emotions, we have unique personalities, which impacts what we eat, how we eat, and not only when we are sad, but when we are happy too.
Yes.
That's a challenge. Generally, we focus on the sad part. Okay, I'll take care. And we think happiness means always good, but that may bring some unhealthy eating, which impacts our mindset. And certainly, very important point, as you mentioned, eating something with guilt makes it worse. So eat whatever it is, body can take care of it. But with guilt, even if you eat something good, it becomes more difficult for body because now you're impacting your metabolism. And when you go for mindful eating, not only you don't have guilt, but then very important to know when to stop. Eating is easy. Starting is easy. When to stop. And simple thing we all have heard, I'm sure, since childhood is, you chew so many times. Sometimes people say 32 times, 24, whatever the number is, but at least chew, don't gulp. Uh, we are in a rush. We are eating as we are driving in the morning to work, having breakfast while driving, and we have no idea what we are eating. We are just gulping kind of thing. And don't follow the clock. Rather than going by clock that, okay, this is the time for such and such meal. If body is not giving you any clues or cues kind of thing, you have no idea what's happening, leave it to the body. Body knows what to do and when and how. And small wins, that's something that people neglect too, as you mentioned, that celebrate, recognize, and that will build up. The small wins really adds up, and then you will do much better because day or two a week is easy, but this is, we are talking about, as you said, it's a journey. So it's not a day or two story. So recognize your small win. And if it is difficult, don't hesitate taking support. I mean, that's simple. Because once you take support, you will sustain. And not only you will sustain, tomorrow you will become somebody else's support. So you see that that will further strengthen and solidify your gain. And don't just leave up with that today I'm happy and after a week what happened to my habits. So wonderful, thank you again, and we will take any questions or anybody sharing. So yeah, masters, please, let's start.